DPC, ESR1 Berlin, Dream League, Bali. The Dota 2 world just feels so oversaturated. You could say I have Dota 2 fatigue. If you had anything better to do in your life, you would not be playing Dota. Before we dive into the teams and give you a breakdown of where I think they're going to place, I thought we can do a short rundown of the play-in format for this group stage of Riyadh Masters, because I think it's quite an interesting one. So basically, there's two groups, Group A and Group B, and the top two teams of each group goes right through to the main event to play in the group stage there. And the bottom four teams of each group play against each other in a best of one decider match. So how they decide to seed it is the 3 seed from one group plays the 6 seed in the opposite group, and the 4-5 seeds respectively in the groups of the opposing groups play each other as well. Alright, let's head into the breakdowns here. And I want to start off with Group B because I want to give a massive spoiler here. The way Wikipedia has it set up in alphabetical order is exactly how this group is going to go. I'm willing to bet money on it, right? So if you want to see, we're just curious of where teams are going to place, fast forward right to the Group A section of this video because this is how we're going to do it, right? Let's start off with the top dogs, 9 Pandas. 9 Pandas has been a great team throughout the year. I would like to say consistently, but not consistently. In ESR Berlin is where they made their real, triumphant show to the whole world. And obviously they had a great performance there, I think finishing top 3 or top 4 in that major. They've been really great in the DPC, and now at Bali Major put up a decent performance as well. And at Dream League, they were pretty good. So they've had consistently good results, at times looking like great results. But I also think if you really watch this team like I do, I'm a massive fan of them. I feel like, sometimes they look really great and sometimes they can look really mediocre. They can play, it's quite inconsistent at times, their level. It looks like they have super high level ideas and concepts in one game. They can control the map against the best teams. And other times it can just look a bit haywire. I think the best way to summarize this team and its potential is kind of in like, we got to pigeonhole even more and just look at Kiyotaka. Kiyotaka is a mid player who can go 20-0 one game or feed 0-10 in the next game. And for me, I'm willing to live with that. I feel like I don't want to really say, okay, they're underperforming, they're overperforming. We know what we get with this team. It's exciting, it's crazy, it's unpredictable. And I feel like in this play-in section, 9 Pandas should be, in Group B at least, the best team, and they should cruise through the groups. If they don't, I'm going to fucking jump out of my window because that would be really disappointing. But yeah, I feel like a team we can talk about more in the group stage predictions or maybe main event predictions, even if that's how it goes, because they're not a play-in quality team. They're a playoff quality team. So that's that for 9 Pandas. The next team we can talk about here in Group B, the other top dog, I think, is Beast Coast. I think if we look at Beast Coast throughout the year, I feel like the best way to summarize them is not inconsistent. They're not like 9 Pandas. They've been consistently mid. I mean, every single tournament you look at Beast Coast, it feels like they start off really bad in the group stage, they'll go 0-3. Then next thing you know, somehow by the last day, they're fighting tiebreakers to make, the playoffs in the upper bracket. Then they'll go into upper bracket or lower bracket in playoffs, and they'll win one round in the lower bracket, then maybe they'll win the next one or have a super tight game against a top opposition team and go out. And I feel like they're a consistently good team, mid if you want to say badly, good if you want to say positively. I think the team overall obviously has really good players. I feel like one of their strengths coming into this tournament is that they don't really do conventional things. They play Dota in their own way. They pick heroes that they like to play. And, they play Beast Coast Dota as Beast Coast Dota. And I think that best summarized again. Look at one of the core players, Jim Parker, right? K1 Hector, when he left, was a big question mark for a lot of people in the community because obviously he's a great player. He was a stronghold in South American Dota and in Beast Coast Dota, being a sane farmer and things. He's gone and moved on to Nouns now, which is kind of interesting, as interesting as NA Dota can get. But this guy, Parker, is a fucking psychopath. That's the only way I know how to describe him. He picks TA first pick every game. Despite the lane, the matchup, whatever, he can feed literally. I saw a game where he fed 1, 2, 3, 4 times in a row consecutively, meaning he didn't even get more than 5 last hits in the lane or spend more than, I would think, 30 seconds of actual playtime in the lane, and he died 4 times in a row. By 12 minutes, he was the most farmed hero in the game, and by 25 minutes, if that's when you tune in, you just watch him like style and carry the whole game. You wouldn't even know he had a start like that. So I think he has a really specific, crazy play style. I feel like they don't do typical meta things also at Beast Coast. So the fact that they're playing the tournament on a new patch, I think could be a real good advantage for them. And yeah, I'm interested to see how this team plays. They should be a top 2 seed in this group. If they finish anything below that, I think that'll be a colossal failure. Knowing Beast Coast, we could see a 4th, 5th place finish. They win the decider match. And then, for all we know, they're still competitive in the next group stage. That would just be classic Beast Coast. But alas, that's what I have to say about them. Let's go into the 3rd place team for Group B. I think that'll be OG. Now, granted, I don't watch that much Western EU DPC because I live in Southeast Asia. The time zone is not the greatest to catch all the games and stuff. But I feel like, OG, one of the most storied teams in Dota 2 history, maybe the most storied team in Dota 2 history at this point. And they have the return of Seb, one last ride for a millionth time. They basically should just rebrand to the Fast and Furious team in Dota with all the talk of family. But he's back. And I feel like despite their, not grand results in the last DPC, they didn't qualify for the major and such. Maybe some struggle since the loss of Amar, even though all the fucking fanboys complained about him. They are still OG. And Seb returning to play on LAN, I feel like at a high stakes, high pressure tournament like this, the Riyadh Masters being a $15 million event, this is where they should be the best. I call them the mentality monsters, and I think this is the place where they can shine. I do think maybe in the playing groups, because again, they haven't looked that convincing, I would still leave them in 3rd, and I feel like Nine Pandas and Beast Coast have showed consistently better performances over the last while. But then again, you could also have those people who say, oh, Western EU DPC is so tough, etc., and that's why they're lacking behind. But regardless, Mr. Seb is back, and I think they could really do damage. But we'll see. They still have to prove it because we haven't seen anything great out of them in a while. And before we get to the next team I talk about, I feel like I forgot to address this at the start of the video. We have Quest, Team Secret, TSM, and Entity at the right at the bottom section, Enjoy Your Flight section. That was just for practical reasons. They all have black logos, and if you leave them here, you can see you can't see anything. So I just left them there so we can see them on the purple background. Truthfully, I could have went to go get the white logos, but who has the time for that shit? So the next team let's talk about is Team Secret. Team Secret is a team that's kind of really underperformed in season 2 or 3 of the DPC. They finished last. They got relegated to Div 2. It was looking kind of rough. Puppy and Boom had to have a breakup. He got kind of kicked from the team, and they got FPZ from C instead. It wasn't great for them, but it was unfortunate because, there's so few off-lane players left in the world. Like the really good ones are all taken up, and there doesn't seem to be too many new blood off-laners. So it just didn't work out with Boom. They have FPZ as well. But they had a lot of tight games and such in DPC, which I think is worth mentioning. So the quality is probably there. A Puppy-led team can never be doubted. But I feel like they have to prove it. They have to show us what this roster is worth. And Riyadh could be the perfect place for it. So I don't have too much to say about Team Secret because it hasn't been looking too great. But I'm always a fan of Puppy. I'm always going to support that team. And I'm curious to see what they do. They got a whole international fusion squad going. And the concept is interesting. Let's see if they can execute when we get to that. The next team in Group B I want to talk about is Quest. Now, I have a couple of thoughts of how I want to do the segment on Quest. Whether I want to go really ham, do I want to keep it cool, do I want to keep it... I don't know. But the first thing I want to say is, under normal circumstances, if Amar did not get kicked, if you didn't see the news, he did get kicked. Well, not kicked. There was contract disputes. This team would have been the top of Group B. I think this would have been an absolute group of death, and Quest would have been the best team in it because they were that good, and I feel like they were only getting better. Unfortunately, for Quest Esports, they could not settle a Mars contract. They did not secure one of the best offlaners in the world for Riyadh Masters or TI, and we don't know where he's going to go. That's still to be decided, but what we do know is Quest are playing with a stand-in in Malik from Navi. And I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like the rest of the team is not bad by any means. I really rate the whole team. I think TA2000 is one of the best carries in the world. I think Coyote and Omar play a super interesting way in support. I think Coyote is a crazy guy. He really likes to play aggressive. Noob, I think, is just the all-round solid mid laner. But I feel like the real X factor of the team was a motherfucker. I mean, that guy was one of those players who really just carried the game from the offlane. I don't feel like there's too many of those guys, and I feel like the best teams that do have those kind of players, Bet Boom and Pure, rest in peace, Bali Major, and Quest with Amar, Ace in Gaming Gladiators. A lot of talk is about Quinn, Darachio. Maybe the community is not too hype on him, but Ace is that fucking anchor of the team. He's always going to win his lane. He's always going to hit his item timings and do that kind of stuff. And Amar was that player for Quest. He had his own style he played. The team enabled it, and he enabled the team, because when they enabled him, he carried the game. So I feel like the fact that they have to get a sub for a player like Amar is also super difficult, because how do you now fill the boots of Amar, which is so specific, It's sad. Was a team I was really a massive fan of. I think the ceiling was the sky for them. They were only getting better. And the fact that they had to break up is just a travesty. So I'm very sad about Quest, and I don't know how they're going to do with the standing. So I'm going to leave them here at 4th and 5th place. And I guess the last team in Group B I have to talk about is Extreme Gaming. Now, they also made a roster change. They got ZenQ in, which is amazing. A guy like ZenQ playing for your team is always a big plus. But they also did kind of underperform to their standards in the Chinese DPC. They didn't qualify. There was that infamous thing where paparazzi leaving the game when they lost to, I think, Azure or IG or something like that. And it never lived up to the potential of this roster. Paparazzi did now say he's going to retire as well. So there's that factor where I think Ame or one of the players, China players, was saying that this team has no hope at this tournament because you have a retired player. But on the flip side of that psychological argument, you could say, they already did struggle mentally and stuff. They didn't have that mentality to be champions and stuff, a winning mindset through it all, like a team like OG. And maybe now that Paparazzi is retiring, you got a new boy in ZenQ who's an absolute god. Maybe the pressure is off and they'll rise up and show up to this occasion. So I think you could debate maybe Secret will be the 6th place in this group and not Extreme. But I think I'm playing it safe for Group B, and I'm going to say Extreme will probably be the last place in the group. And I would be happy to see them go China Dota fan here, but we'll see. So that's my thing for Group B. Let's head over to Group A now. Now, Group A for me is where things get a little bit more interesting, because I feel like there's a lot more, nuance in the group. I think a lot more things can happen. I don't think it's so set in stone. I mean, I could be obviously awfully wrong about Group B as well. But I think the one thing that's most certain in Group A is Team Liquid finishing absolute top of the group. I wasn't too high on Team Liquid going into Bali Major. I felt like their performance at Dream League was really lacking. They didn't show anything phenomenal in the DPC as well, that tour. But, their full roster came back together. Insania had that infamous quote saying, you know what, the honest truth is we haven't been practicing enough. We haven't been putting in the work. And I feel like, the result of that work showed at Bali Major. Now, they did finish top 2 there, losing to Gaming Gladiators. No shame. They are the gods of Dota right now. But I also don't think Liquid was I don't think they were like a straight up top 2 team. There was a lot of things up for debate at Bali. Like Bet Boom, for example, the Pure incident, they got knocked down to the lower bracket, disqualified there. Pure was banned from playing. I think they looked like the second best team in upper bracket to me before that. In the lower bracket, I feel like Quest actually had a chance to beat them in game 3. They had such a big net worth lead and things, and I think Quest inexperience showed there. And obviously, maybe that's an ups to Liquid that they knew how to still keep in the game at that point, keep their composure, a more experienced team. But I don't know. I think there's still some cracks in the Liquid armor. But at the same time, on the flip side, they also have great things. I mean, they sort of like Visage lanes and stuff. The way they were playing them, I think, was the best at Bali. They never lost the Visage lanes. They could play at a super fast tempo. They have these cheese picks like the Lone Druid, Juggernaut, a carry that's maybe going up in stocks. At this tournament, I could maybe predict because of the nerfs of Medusa, and I can't remember the other, and Morphling. Mickey is an expert on that hero as well. This team could be a great team as well for this tournament as well, but I can't say I'm certain on that. But in the play-in section, for this section, they should qualify like 7-0. Nobody should fucking touch Team Liquid, honestly. They're a great team. Now, the second team in the group is a debate here, because you're going to have some people saying Entity, you're going to have some people saying Aster. Maybe you have some people saying VP2. I don't know if I'm going to make that argument for them, but let's start with Entity first before anything. So Entity, in my opinion, they've struggled a bit in the Western EU DPC. Stormer, although had great performances at TI last year, I feel like it was super solid. He won a lot of his lanes. Looks to be a bit off meta for him. He's quite struggling. Watson is really hyped as a carry player. I think the number one ranked in EU. People are saying Watson versus the world in their games. But I think for me, the biggest issue is that I feel like when I watch them play and when I see them draft and things, it feels like they have this individual, okay, this hero is good for this player, this is that. But I don't feel like a cohesive vision of what Entity is trying to do as a team. I can't tell you what the philosophy is, what the type of play is for Entity, what game state best favors them. I don't know. It just seems like a lot of uncertainty with the team, and it's not a team I'm going to really rate that highly when they don't have a clear idea of what they're doing. Like, I think Azure Ray is a good example to contrast with them at Bali. They could see they were like coming off retirement. There were some things a bit weird and whatever, but they had their own ideas of how they wanted to play and how they wanted to execute. It didn't always work out, but it gives you an idea of something. Hey, they're trying to do this, and they could catch teams off guard with that. And I don't feel like Entity really has an X factor besides one thing. Katayomi, I don't know if he's saying his name right, I think it's Katayomi. Pudge is the most godlike thing in Dota right now. Legitimately. I feel like his Pudge, I did not know you can have one player win all three lanes and dominate a game for 15 minutes in current pro Dota. I thought teams and players are so good now that cannot happen, but he still does that. Honestly, if you let through Pudge against Entity, then you deserve an automatic loss because that's how good it is. You could say it's so good it can even carry Entity to a top 2 placement because I do not have them top 2. I will put them in 3rd place team because the other team I have in the top would be Aster. Now this would look like a safe play if you're looking at historical results because Aster have not been a great team, right? But they've been a historically good team, like in the last couple of while. They've been consistently good, having consistently decent results, finishing in top 6, top 8, etc. at all these tournaments. And I think the fact that Kaameel went there has given life to China. They have a whole land there. It's been great, but there's also drama in Aster. They've had a player leave. Baboka got kicked. Kaka's there, which was a player I think a lot of people already rate. Some people are meme him and stuff, but I think that's a good move in isolation, but it's quite late in the season to happen, so we don't know how that's going to work out. I also think the player that they replaced was the wrong player because maybe Bagoka wasn't like looking his greatest like he was maybe in TI 7 years or something. But I also think maybe TI 7 is the wrong year, sorry. But I also think the biggest problem in Aster is XXS. I feel like we spoke about the value of Amar, Ace, pure from Bet Boom, these offlaners who really can carry and win you games by themselves. And I feel like XSS is the opposite of that. He's so inconsistent. There's never a game where I watch it and I'm like, holy shit, XXS popped off, well done. And I think you need that. And I think he, in that Baboka XXS duo, they played 1,500 games and all of that together. I think he was the big problem for me. But the reason I do still have Aster in the top 2 team in Group A is because Sumail is honestly a god. I can't believe he's been this good for this long, and until today he still can pop off and carry games. And I feel like in this playing section he has the skill to just carry them. Got to give credit to Monet as well. I think he's quite a consistent boss 1, and I just like to think Aster would make it to top 2. I think another team where you could say could make a surprise run at top 2 could be this VP team. I think maybe the international audience doesn't see how good this team is because Eastern EU qualifiers are just that rough. The Eastern European DPC is just that difficult. You have Spirit, Bitboom, 9 Pandas there. How does another team qualify? I feel like everybody talks about how tough Western EU DPC is because you have all these big name players from rosters, the top team to the 8th place team and stuff. But I feel like in just pure quality of teams, Eastern EU is not that far behind on the top end, mind you. And VP have consistently finished 4th in the DPC. So I think that's something to be praised as well. And now they don't have Spirit, 9 Pandas, and Bet Boom to play against. So this could be a chance. They could maybe make a dark horse run. Maybe they'll be the top two. Maybe they'll be the third place, or maybe they'll fourth and fifth. Maybe we can even be crazy and just say they're gonna go. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I can't make that assumption straight up. But I feel like let's see what they do. Let's see how they do in a new environment against international competition and stuff. Because again, because of how tough the DPC has been, we haven't really got to see that. So I'm interested to see how it goes. But for now, I'll leave them in fourth and fifth place because they still have to prove. Now, the last two teams we have to talk about here in Group A is TSM and Execration. Obviously, NA fanboys are going to be like, oh, TSM, you know, coming in, you know, they had that great place spot at the major finals a year back. They look to be some hope in NA. But I'm a NA hater straight up. I never have hope for them. I shout out Nouns in my last tier list video. I was proven wrong. Shout out Gunner and the boys, and I think they got a lot better now with K1. But I ain't convinced with TSM, man. I'm really not going to favor them. I'd rather give my boys at Execration the gas and say they will make fourth or fifth place instead. I mean, a lot of these teams can all go home because the decider format is just like that. But yeah, maybe I'm being a hater because Execration I'm not really all that hype on either. I feel like we've seen a lot of their play. I mean, they qualified to either 2 out of the 3 majors or every major, and they should have been at the first Dream League as well, but they didn't get visas and stuff. They will be at Riyadh at least. But even though they qualified to a lot of majors, their performances was never great. They're in the DPC and C as well. I didn't feel like they really showed anything special. At Bali, there were signs of life. I feel like every single team in the group stage at some point or another showed like, hey, we can play Dota. Besides surprisingly Evil Geniuses. I mean, they really underperformed, I think. But Execration did have a lot of games where I was like, hey, they should have won this game if they were a little bit better, if they were a little bit more put together, if they could execute better, if they could do those things. But I feel like they're not looking like they have that X factor, they have something that's going to be super special and things coming into this play, and I do see them going home. So I would put them here, maybe put TSM back up. I don't know. Maybe if I just want to be, you know, a fanboy, I'd put them up. But I'm not really that convinced with Execration. So that's my tier list. I think Group B is the stronger group. I think Group A, there could be a lot of volatility there. I mean, Group B could be the same thing. And I think if you're going to go into the play-ins, maybe you're not going to watch all the play-in matches. You want to save up, you know, your viewing experience and things for group stage and the playoffs. That's absolutely fine. The one match I will recommend you watch is this Aster versus Entity match in Group A, because I feel like that already decide where the group's going to go. Because Liquid, if they don't qualify, right, if they don't qualify to the play-ins, then I don't know what to say. Like, they should be the top of that group. But I think the second place team that's going to go through to the playoffs straight up and doesn't have to play that like best of one crazy shit is a big deal. So I think Entity versus Aster could be a big one. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please comment below what your predictions are, where you think I got it right, where you think I got it wrong, and don't forget to subscribe because I'm going to have more content coming out for Riyadh Masters. So thank you for watching and goodbye.